Commander Tyke paced along the raised platform, his scales shimmering under the bright lights of the training hall. The 7 vertical eyes on his face blinked in sequence as he surveyed the new recruits standing at attention below him. 200 beings from across the galaxy, representing 37 different species, all hoping to join the Galactic Federation's elite forces. "Welcome to survival training," Tyke announced, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard Galactic Common. "This course separates those who deserve to serve from those who do not." The recruits stood straighter. Most came from temperate worlds with stable environments and advanced civilizations. To them, survival meant operating technology, not fighting, against nature itself. "This training will take 1 full standard year," Tyke continued. "Many of you will fail. Some will quit. Those who complete it will earn their place among our ranks." In the back row stood Jin, the only human in the group. Earth had joined the Federation just 3 years ago, and humans were still rare sights, beyond their solar system. Jin kept her expression neutral as the alien commander spoke, though she noticed several recruits turning to stare at her. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet so naturally hostile that most galactic species considered it uninhabitable. High gravity, extreme weather patterns, aggressive microbes, and dangerous wildlife made Earth a nightmare to most Federation species. Yet to Jin, it had simply been home. "The first module begins tomorrow," Commander Tyke said. "You will enter the simulation domes where you will face environments designed to test your limits. The first environment is based on the desert planet Krell 7. Jin had studied Krell 7 during her preparation. Hot days, cold nights, hidden water sources. Not unlike parts of Earth's Atacama Desert, where she had trained as a youth. As the commander listed the expected completion timeframes, Jin calculated her approach. 3 weeks for basic shelter construction, 2 months for sustainable water collection, 4 months for food sources. "Recruit Jin," Commander Tyke suddenly called out. The room went silent as all eyes turned to her. "I notice you seem unimpressed by our curriculum." Jin stood at attention. "No, Commander. I am eager to learn." Tyke's upper membrane rippled, in what Jin recognized as the Vexian equivalent of a dismissive smile. "Perhaps you believe your primitive Earth survival skills will be sufficient? Your species has only recently achieved space travel. Our methods are far more advanced." Several recruits chittered or bubbled in their species' versions of laughter. "I respect the Federation's methods, Commander," Jin replied calmly. Instructor Yoon, a tall blue-skinned being standing beside Tyke, leaned down to whisper something. Tyke's eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of interest. "An interesting suggestion," Tyke said. "Recruit Jin, would you be willing to demonstrate your Earth survival techniques? We could observe your approach to the first module while the others prepare." Jin recognized the trap. They expected her to fail, providing an example to the others of human weakness. "I would be honored," she replied with a slight bow. "Commander," Tyke's upper membrane rippled again. "Very well. Report to Simulation Dome A at dawn. The rest of you are dismissed until the following day." As the recruits filed out, Jin felt their curious gazes. Some seemed amused, others concerned. A small Prilaxian recruit with delicate wing casings paused beside her. "They expect you to fail," the Prilaxian said quietly. "No one has ever completed the first module in less than 2 weeks." "Thank you for your concern," Jin replied. "I am Juan," the Prilaxian introduced himself. "My people evolved on a moon with 6 times standard gravity. Even we find the Federation training difficult." Jin nodded. "Earth has many environments. I've trained in most of them." "Is it true humans can survive temperatures that would kill most species?" Juan asked. "We adapt," Jin said simply. Later that night, Jin reviewed her notes one final time. Commander Tyke had set her up to fail, but she saw an opportunity. If humans were to find their place in the Federation, they needed to prove their worth. In her small quarters, Jin packed her Federation-issued survival kit and added a few items. From Earth, a simple metal tool with multiple functions, a water filtration straw, and a small cloth bag of seeds. She didn't need much else. Dawn would come soon, and with it her chance to show the galaxy what a Deathworlder could do. Dawn broke over the training facility as Jin approached Simulation Dome A. The massive structure stood 30 meters tall, its surface a smooth white shell that concealed the complex environmental systems within. 2 guards flanked the entrance, their expressions curious as the human arrived. "Recruit Jin reporting as ordered," she said. The guards exchanged glances, before one pressed a communication device. "The human is here, Commander." The dome's entrance slid open with a soft hiss. Inside stood Commander Tyke and Instructor Yoon, along with several junior officers holding monitoring equipment. "Recruit Jin," Commander Tyke greeted her. "The simulation has been programmed to replicate Krell 7's western desert basin. Once you enter, the environment will be indistinguishable from the actual planet." Jin nodded. "I understand, Commander." "Standard completion time for the first module is 3 weeks, Instructor Yoon added. "You will be provided with the basic survival kit issued to all recruits." A junior officer handed Jin a small pack containing minimal tools. She accepted it with a nod, then added her few personal items. "Those are not regulation equipment," Yoon noted. "Earth items," Jin explained. "Nothing technological or advanced." Commander Tyke's membrane flickered. "Very well. The simulation will begin when you cross the threshold. We will monitor your progress from the observation deck." Jin stepped forward, into the simulation chamber. As the door closed behind her, the white walls disappeared, replaced by an endless expanse of red-orange desert. The heat hit her immediately, dry and intense. 2 suns hung in the sky, one larger and orange, the other smaller and white. The horizon wavered with heat mirages. From the observation deck, Commander Tyke and the other officers watched as Jin surveyed her surroundings. A group of recruits had also gathered, eager to witness the humans' attempt. "Water is the primary challenge of Krell 7, Instructor Yoon explained to the observers. "Most recruits spend days locating a viable source, Santor." The screens, Jin was already moving with purpose toward a specific rock formation. "Where is she going?" asked a junior officer. Commander Tyke leaned forward. "That area has no programmed water sources." They watched as Jin reached the rocks and began examining them closely. She ran her fingers along certain patterns in the stone, then began digging in a precise location. Within minutes, moisture appeared in the soil. "Impossible," muttered Yoon. "That water pocket wasn't in the programming." "She's reading the natural signs," said a quiet voice from the back. It was Juan, the Prelaxian recruit. The lichens on the north side of the rocks, the slight discoloration of the soil. Earth creatures use these methods. By midday, the observers watched in growing amazement as Jin had not only secured water, but had begun constructing a shelter. Using her simple metal tool, she was cutting into the rock face to create a protected alcove. "That should take at least 3 days with the provided tools," Yoon said, checking her manual. Junior Instructor Sung entered the observation deck, holding a data tablet. "Commander, I've been reviewing the humans' file. Earth has deserts, rainforests, tundras, mountains, more environmental variation than nearly any other inhabited world we've encountered." Commander Tyke's 7 eyes narrowed as he processed this information. By sunset, Jin had completed a shelter, set up a water collection system that captured moisture from the cold night air, and identified several edible plant species that other recruits typically took weeks to verify as safe. The observation deck had grown crowded as more recruits and instructors came to witness the unexpected progress. Some were taking notes, others simply stared in disbelief. "She's completed 10 days' worth of objectives in 1 day," Yoon reported, her voice tight with disbelief. Commander Tyke watched the screen silently. His initial amusement had faded, replaced by something closer to concern. As darkness fell on the simulated desert, the monitors showed Jin sitting calmly by a small, efficient fire. She was cooking something in a makeshift container fashioned from materials in her environment. "What is she doing now?" asked an officer. "She's purifying salt from the soil," Juan explained. "And those plants contain natural antibiotics. She's treating her water supply." A murmur went through the observers. These techniques weren't in any Federation manual. Commander Tyke turned to Instructor Yoon. Tomorrow we increase the difficulty. Let's see how the human handles predators and extreme weather events. As the commanders left the observation deck, the recruits continued watching the screens. Jin had settled into her shelter, apparently unbothered by conditions that would kill many species within hours. I heard humans evolved on a planet where everything tries to kill them, one recruit whispered. Maybe, another replied. They became the most dangerous things on their world instead. Jin woke before the simulated suns rose. The desert night had dropped to freezing temperatures, but her shelter retained heat efficiently. She checked her water collection system and found it had gathered more moisture than expected during the night. As she prepared for the day ahead, she sensed a change in the air pressure. On the observation deck, Commander Tyke entered with Instructor Yoon and several other officers. The crowd of watching recruits had grown even larger overnight as word spread about the humans' progress. Status report, Tyke demanded. The human has already completed the first week's objectives, Sung reported. At this rate, she'll finish the first module by nightfall. Commander Tyke's scales darkened slightly, a sign of irritation among his species. Increase difficulty parameters. Implement the week 6 weather pattern and introduce the predator simulation. Sir, that's not scheduled until, Yoon began. Do it, Tyke interrupted. Let's see how the Deathworlder handles real challenges. Inside the dome, Jin noticed the wind picking up. The sky darkened as heavy clouds formed overhead. She quickly secured her shelter and gathered her supplies, moving to higher ground as the first fat raindrops began to fall. The simulated storm intensified rapidly. What should have been a rare desert rainfall turned into a flash flood. Water rushed through the narrow canyon, sweeping away everything in its path. The observers watched as Jin calmly climbed to a protected ledge, bringing her essential tools and supplies. Instead of merely waiting out the storm, she set up containers to collect the clean rainwater and reinforced her position. She anticipated the flood, Juan noted from the back of the room. Look at her location. It's the optimal position for both safety and resource collection. As the storm passed, new sounds echoed through the simulation, low growls and the padding of heavy feet on stone. The Krell stalkers, a junior officer explained to the newer recruits. Apex predators. Most trainees avoid them for the first 3 months of training. On the screens, Jin froze as she heard the creatures approaching. She carefully positioned herself behind an outcropping of rocks and waited. When the first stalker came into view, a 6-legged predator with razor-sharp teeth and excellent night vision, Jin remained perfectly still. She's going to be discovered, Yoon said, checking the creature's sensory parameters. But Jin did something unexpected. She took mud from the recent rainfall and spread it over her exposed skin, then added certain crushed plants to the mixture. The stalker approached her position, sniffed the air, and then moved on, apparently unable to detect her. She masked her scent, Sung said, checking his data tablet, using plants with chemical properties similar to the stalker's territorial markings. That technique isn't in our manuals, Yoon said quietly. By midday, Jin had not only avoided the predators but had begun studying their behavior patterns. She documented their movements and hunting techniques, then used this knowledge to safely navigate around their territory. The observers watched in amazement as she constructed more permanent shelter that incorporated defenses against both the stalkers and the weather patterns. She created tools that weren't listed in any Federation training guide and developed methods for preserving the food sources she'd identified. She's completed 6 months of coursework in less than a day and a half, Sung reported, his voice tinged with disbelief. Commander Tyke's membrane was now fully raised, a sign of serious concern among his species. Implement the drought conditions, he ordered. Remove all surface water sources. The simulation shifted again. The ground dried rapidly, and the collected water began to evaporate. The plant life wilted under the intense heat of both suns. Jin noticed the change immediately. Without hesitation, she dug deeper into the ground at specific locations, finding water tables that weren't in the original programming. She constructed an underground shelter that maintained cooler temperatures and preserved moisture. "Commander," Yoon said urgently, "High Command has contacted us. They've been monitoring the simulation remotely. Representatives are on their way to witness this personally." Tyke's scales paled. "How soon?" "They'll arrive within the hour." On the screens, Jin was now doing something truly unexpected. She had approached one of the smaller stalker packs and was careful to stay downwind. She left small amounts of a plant she had processed near their territory. When the creatures consumed it, their aggressive behavior seemed to diminish. "She's domesticating them?" Juan whispered in awe. "Not possible," Yoon insisted. "The stalkers aren't programmed to be tameable." Yet, the evidence was clear on the screens. The stalkers were now allowing Jin to approach, even responding to simple signals she made. "Commander," Sung reported, "the human has now completed 9 months of the curriculum. At this rate, she'll finish the entire course by sunset." Commander Tyke stared at the screens, his 7 eyes unblinking. "Prepare the final test," he said quietly. "Let's see how she handles the impossible." The observation deck had transformed from a simple monitoring station into something resembling a formal gathering. Senior Federation officials in ceremonial uniforms stood in tight groups, speaking in hushed tones as they watched the screens. The regular recruits had been pushed to the back, though many still craned their necks to see. "High Commander Bach, welcome to Training Facility 7, Commander Tyke said, bowing deeply to the newly arrived dignitary. Bach was tall even for a Vexian, with scales that had darkened to deep purple with age and status. "I came as soon as I received the reports," High Commander Bach replied. "They seemed implausible." "I assure you, the data is accurate," Tyke said. "The human recruit has mastered 9 months of our curriculum in just under 2 standard days." Bach moved closer to the screens, his 7 eyes focusing intently on Jin's activities. "And there has been no cheating? No prior knowledge of the simulation parameters?" "None," confirmed Instructor Yoon. "If anything, we have increased the difficulty well beyond standard protocols." Bach watched as Jin communicated with the stalkers she had partially domesticated. The creatures now served as guards for her compound, alerting her to other predators in the area. "Remarkable," Bach whispered. "In all my years overseeing training, I've never seen anything like this." "High Commander," Tyke said carefully, "with your permission, I'd like to implement the final test scenario, to truly measure the extent of the human's capabilities." Bach turned, his membrane fluttering with interest. "The toxic atmosphere protocol? That's typically reserved for graduation assessment." "Yes, sir. Combined with limited resources and multiple apex predator species." Bach considered for a moment, then nodded. "Proceed. I wish to see how the Deathworlder responds." Commander Tyke gave the orders to his technical staff. Inside the dome, the simulation began to change dramatically. Jin had just finished reinforcing her water filtration system. When she noticed the sky turning a sickly green color, the air took on a bitter smell that burned slightly in her nostrils. Toxic atmosphere. She quickly covered her mouth and nose with a cloth soaked in water, buying herself time to think. On the observation deck, the officials watched intently. "The atmosphere now contains compounds similar to chlorine gas," Yoon explained to the gathered dignitaries. "Most species would require breathing apparatus within minutes." Jin studied her surroundings carefully. The plants were beginning to wilt under the new conditions. The stalkers were retreating into caves. She noticed certain mosses that seemed more resistant to the toxic air. Without hesitation, she gathered these mosses and combined them with clay from the ground and charcoal from her fire. Working quickly, she fashioned a primitive but effective filtration mask. "What is she doing?" asked Bach. "She's creating a natural air filter," Juan explained from the back. When the senior officials turned to look at him, the small Prilaxian stepped forward nervously. "On Earth, many plants can filter toxins. She's using the principles of natural selection to identify which ones are resistant to these specific chemicals." Jin had secured her breathing for the moment, but new challenges were emerging. The simulation had introduced 3 new predator species, each more aggressive than the stalkers. The water sources she had located were now contaminated with visible, Pollutants. Many of her food sources had withered under the toxic conditions. This scenario has a 12% completion rate among final year trainees, Yoon noted. None have ever solved it in less than 3 weeks. They watched as Jin analyzed her situation. She first secured a small cave as a safe haven, using natural materials to filter the air flowing into it. Then she ventured out to study the new predators from a safe distance. She's learning their behaviors before confronting them, Juan observed. Classic Earth Apex Predator technique. Over the next few hours, Jin methodically addressed each challenge. She found ways to detoxify water by using layered filtration systems made from sand, charcoal, and certain plant fibers. She identified new food sources that thrived in the toxic environment. Most impressively, she established a safe perimeter by using the territorial nature of the different predator species against each other. She's not just surviving, Bach said with wonder in his voice. She's creating a sustainable system. By late afternoon, Jin had accomplished something truly extraordinary. She had not only adapted to the impossible conditions but had begun to transform them. Using the principles of Earth's ecosystem management, she was systematically reducing the toxicity in her immediate area. Commander, a technical officer reported. She's actually changing the simulation parameters through her actions. The system wasn't programmed for environmental remediation. She's terraforming, Juan whispered. As the sun began to set on the Ikor simulated world, Jin sat calmly outside her shelter. Around her, the immediate environment had stabilized. The predators gave her area wide berth. The air was noticeably clearer within 50 meters of her camp. High Commander Bach turned to Commander Tyke. I have seen enough. Prepare graduation protocols immediately. But sir, Tyke objected, the course is meant to take a full year. This human has mastered not just our curriculum, but has demonstrated techniques beyond our current understanding, Bach interrupted. Alert Federation Command. We need to completely reassess our approach to Deathworld species. The Great Hall of the training facility had never hosted a graduation ceremony like this one. Usually, such events occurred after a full year of training, with dozens of tired but proud recruits receiving their certifications. Today, there was just one graduate, and the ceremony had been organized in less than a standard day. Jin stood at attention in the center of the hall, still wearing the simple training uniform that now showed signs of her time in the simulation. Despite having spent only 3 days in training rather than a year, the respect in the room was palpable. Commander Tyke approached the ceremonial platform, followed by High Commander Bach and several Federation Council members who had arrived by emergency transport after receiving the reports. Recruits, instructors, honored guests, Tyke began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. We gather to recognize an unprecedented achievement. The attending recruits stood perfectly still. Many had watched Jin's performance in the simulation, and now regarded her with a mixture of awe and wariness. In the history of Federation training, no recruit has ever completed the full survival curriculum in less than 8 standard months, Tyke continued. Recruit Jin of Earth has mastered it in 3 days. A murmur passed through the assembled crowd. High Commander Bach stepped forward, his purple scales gleaming under the ceremonial lights. I have personally reviewed the simulation data. What we witnessed was not merely survival skills, but innovation beyond our current methodologies. Jin remained at attention, her expression composed. The Federation hereby grants you full certification with special commendation, Bach announced, presenting Jin with a glowing blue insignia. Furthermore, we offer you a position as special instructor for our elite units. Jin accepted the insignia with a respectful bow. I am honored, High Commander. I would like to serve, though I do have suggestions for improving the course. A few nervous laughs sounded from the assembled recruits. Of course you do, Bach replied with unexpected warmth. We are counting on it. After the ceremony, Jin found herself in a private meeting room with the Federation's highest officers. Star maps covered the walls, showing the territories of member, species, and potential expansion zones. We have severely underestimated humans, Council Member June said plainly, and perhaps other Deathworld species as well. Jin, Bach addressed her directly. What made you so effective in the simulation? Jin considered her answer carefully. Humans evolved in an environment that required constant adaptation. Earth has thousands of distinct ecosystems, each with their own challenges. But the techniques you used, Commander Tyke pressed, many weren't in any of our manuals. On Earth we have a saying, Jin replied. Necessity is the mother of invention. When survival depends on solving a problem, we find solutions. The Federation officials exchanged glances. We would like to establish a new division, Bok announced. The Deathworld Tactics Division, with you as its chief advisor. More humans will be recruited, June added. And we're reassessing our classification of other Deathworld species previously considered too primitive for Federation service. 3 months later, the training facility had transformed. A new wing had been constructed specifically for Deathworld training techniques. Jin walked its corridors, now wearing the blue uniform of a senior instructor. Behind her followed a group of alien officers eager to learn Earth methodologies. Adaptation isn't just physical, Jin explained as they entered a new simulation chamber. It's a mindset. When faced with impossible odds, look for unconventional solutions. The chamber activated, revealing a storm-ravaged coastline. The alien officers looked apprehensive but began applying the techniques Jin had taught them. In his private office, Commander Tyke reviewed applications from other Deathworld species. His screen showed profiles of beings from high-gravity planets, ammonia atmosphere worlds, and radiation-soaked moons, all previously dismissed as too specialized for Federation service. His communication panel lit up with an incoming message from Federation High Command. All battle strategies being rewritten. Deathworld tactical approaches now classified as primary methodology. Continue expansion of program. First human-led mixed species unit to be deployed next quarter. Take closed the file and gazed out his window at the training grounds below. There, Jin was demonstrating how to create tools from seemingly useless materials to a group of fascinated senior officers. In just 3 months, she had revolutionized Federation training philosophy. Reports from the field indicated that units employing her methods had improved their mission success rates by over 300%. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Juan, now wearing junior instructor insignia. Sir, the first transport from Earth has arrived. 20 new human recruits. Tyke's membrane rippled slightly. How many more are expected? Earth has authorized full cooperation. Thousands have applied. Commander Tyke stood and straightened his uniform. The galaxy is about to change, Junior, Instructor, and we must change with it. Outside, Jin looked up at the sky as a transport ship descended toward the landing pad. She smiled briefly as she recognized the Earth insignia on its hull. The revolution had only just begun.